You wake up every day with a sense of who you are. A name, a story, a personality. Maybe you think of yourself as kind, independent, intelligent, or loyal. But what if none of that is actually real? What if your identity is just a carefully crafted illusion, a mask you wear without even realizing it? From the moment we're born, we're shaped by forces we don't control: family expectations, social norms, school systems, and the silent pressure to fit in. These influences don't just affect our behavior, they quietly sculpt our beliefs about ourselves. Over time, we begin to confuse who we really are with who we were told to be. The truth is, your mind is built for survival, not for self-honesty. It wants to belong, to be accepted, to feel safe, so it adapts. It constructs an identity that will earn love, avoid rejection, and keep you protected. But in doing so, it hides parts of yourself that don't match this image. You start believing that you're always the person you pretend to be in public. You start thinking the story you tell others is the truth. But deep down, you feel the cracks. You sense the emptiness that comes when you're alone, when the masks come off, when no one is watching. This illusion of self is comforting. It makes life easier. It gives you a sense of direction and meaning. But it's also a trap. Because if you never question it, you never discover who you are beneath the surface. You live your whole life playing a role in someone else's script, thinking it's your own. And eventually, you forget that you're even acting. Psychologists have studied this phenomenon for decades. Carl Jung called it the persona, the social face we present to the world. It's not fake, but it's not complete either. It's like a costume, useful in certain situations but suffocating when worn all the time. The more attached you are to this costume, the more distant you become from your authentic self. But peeling back the layers of identity is uncomfortable. It means admitting that parts of your personality were chosen for you, not by you. It means realizing that some of your values, opinions, even your goals might not be yours at all. They might be echoes of your parents' fears, your culture's expectations, or your need to be seen a certain way. Facing this truth can feel like losing yourself. But in reality, it's the first step toward finding yourself. So ask yourself, who are you when no one's around? When there's no one to impress, no expectations to meet? That version of you, raw and unfiltered, is the one that dark psychology seeks to uncover. It's not always pretty. It might even scare you. But it's real. And until you're willing to confront it, you'll never truly know who you are. You'll only know who you were trained to be. Let me know if you'd like Chapter 2 developed next, or want a version with narration cues or visuals for YouTube. 4.0. Você disse, there are parts of you that you've locked away so tightly, you barely remember they exist. Pieces of your personality that felt too dangerous to show, too shameful to express, too dark to acknowledge. But just because you've buried them doesn't mean they've disappeared. In fact, those hidden pieces are still there, silently influencing your thoughts, your reactions, your relationships. This is the shadow. The part of your psyche made up of everything you deny, reject, or repress. It's the version of you that you refuse to look at, even when it stares back through your actions. You've probably felt it before, in those moments when you explode with anger and immediately regret it, or when envy creeps in and you pretend you're above it. It's there when you silently judge others for traits you secretly recognize in yourself. You push these feelings aside, label them as bad or unworthy, and convince yourself they have nothing to do with you. But they do. The more you suppress your shadow, the more power it gains in the dark. Like a wound left untreated, it festers, growing more toxic with time. And sooner or later it finds a way to leak out. In sarcasm, passive aggression, cruel thoughts, or impulsive choices you can't explain. Carl Jung believed that the shadow is not inherently evil, but it becomes dangerous when ignored. By pretending it doesn't exist, you give it the ability to control you from the background. You may think you're making conscious choices, but often You're simply reacting to unexamined fears and unresolved emotions. You tell yourself you're always the good person, the kind one, the moral one. But is that the full story? Or is that just the version you want others to see? Everyone carries a shadow. It might take the form of suppressed rage, unacknowledged pride, hidden resentment, or a hunger for validation. And the irony is, the more virtuous you try to be, the more likely you are to have a shadow that's been pushed far underground. Society rewards you for being nice, agreeable, selfless. But real humans are complex, contradictory, and sometimes cruel. Ignoring that truth doesn't make you better. It just makes you unaware. The path to true self-awareness begins by facing what you've been running from. Not to act on those impulses, but to understand them. To ask why they're there, where they came from, and what they might be trying to tell you. Every dark emotion carries a message. Jealousy might reveal what you truly desire. Anger might show you where your boundaries were violated. Fear might expose what you're not yet ready to confront. When you silence these signals, you lose access to a deeper intelligence inside you. You can't heal what you refuse to see. The shadow isn't your enemy. It's the part of you that holds the key to your wholeness. But to unlock it, you have to go where most people won't. Into the dark corners of your own mind, where your true self waits in silence, asking to be seen. Of yourself, smiling and in control. Other times it's the agreeable one, the listener, the peacemaker. These masks aren't lies, exactly. They're parts of you that have been polished and shaped to be socially acceptable. You wear them to fit in, to succeed, to avoid conflict. But over time, if you wear them long enough, you forget you ever had a face beneath them. You start to believe that these masks are who you are. And that's where the danger begins. We are all actors to some extent. Society rewards performance, politeness, charm, resilience. You learned early on that certain emotions were not welcome. You were told to calm down, to be good, to stop crying, to toughen up. So you adapted. You adjusted your behavior to earn approval, to avoid rejection, to stay safe. And it worked. People liked the version of you they saw. They praised it. And so you kept playing the role. But behind every mask is a silent voice wondering what would happen if you stopped pretending. That voice gets quieter the more you ignore it, but it never truly disappears. The mask doesn't just protect you from others, it also shields you from yourself. Because if you took it off, you might have to admit things you're not ready to face, that you're not always kind, that you crave attention, that you sometimes manipulate, that you feel lost. The truth is uncomfortable. It forces you to confront contradictions. You say you value honesty, but how often do you hide how you really feel? You claim to be strong, but how often do you avoid what scares you by acting like it doesn't matter? The mask is a shield, but it's also a cage. It limits your expression. It drains your energy. It disconnects you from intimacy because no one can truly know you if you never show who you are. Over time, this performance becomes exhausting. You might find yourself feeling empty after social situations, unsure why you feel distant from your own life, why nothing feels quite real. That numbness is the cost of living as a character in your own story instead of the author of it. Taking off the mask doesn't mean exposing your darkest thoughts to everyone around you. It doesn't mean rejecting politeness or refusing to adapt. It means giving yourself space to be honest, at least with yourself. It means recognizing when you're performing and asking yourself why. It means allowing the messier, more complicated parts of you to have a voice. Only then can you begin to build an identity that isn't based on pleasing others, but on actually being you. Until that moment comes, every interaction will be a subtle act of hiding. And deep down, you'll always wonder if people love you, for who you are, or for the mask you've learned to wear so well. Control is a quiet obsession. It doesn't always come with shouting or dominance. Often it hides beneath smiles, under the surface of good intentions, inside the way you word your messages or time your responses. Wanting control is human. It gives us a sense of safety in a world that constantly shifts. But the darker truth is that the more we try to control others, the more we reveal how little control we feel within ourselves. And that's where the psychology turns inward, where things begin to unravel. Maybe you've noticed it in your relationships. How you steer conversations, how you withdraw affection to make a point, how you feel unsettled when someone acts in a way you didn't predict. You tell yourself it's normal, that everyone does it. And that's partly true. But when your need for control becomes constant, subtle manipulation starts to take root. You don't call it manipulation, of course. You call it protecting yourself, setting boundaries, teaching someone a lesson. But underneath that logic is fear. Fear of vulnerability, fear of being hurt, fear of uncertainty. Dark psychology often begins not with cruelty, but with self-defense. The tools we develop to survive emotionally, guilt-tripping, passive aggression, gaslighting, playing the victim. They emerge as strategies when we feel powerless. At first they're unconscious, but over time they become habits, then identities. And worst of all, we justify them. We tell ourselves that we're only reacting, not initiating, that we're just trying to fix things. But control dressed, as care is still control, and it erodes trust faster than open conflict ever could. What makes this dynamic so dangerous is how invisible it becomes. You can manipulate without realizing it. You can use silence as punishment, kindness as leverage, honesty as a weapon. You start to measure people's reactions instead of listening to their words. You look for patterns you can exploit, weaknesses you can avoid, buttons you can press. And all the while, you believe you're being reasonable, maybe even kind. But it's not kindness. It's control disguised as connection. The darker part of this psychology is not about blaming others. It's about seeing yourself clearly. Everyone has used control tactics at some point. The difference is whether or not you're willing to see it and take responsibility. Because when you recognize your own patterns, you have a choice. You can continue to manipulate, to dominate quietly, to keep pretending it's just who you are. Or you can pause, question your motives, accept that being out of control is not the same as being unsafe. Freedom doesn't come from controlling others. It comes from surrendering the illusion that you must. Real connection isn't built on power. It's built on honesty, even when that honesty makes you uncomfortable. If you can sit with discomfort without needing to twist it, fix it, or force it away, then you're closer to something real. Because only when you stop trying to control the outside world can you begin to understand the chaos within yourself. There comes a moment when all the layers you've worn, all the identities you've clung to, begin to feel heavy. You've faced your shadow, questioned your masks, and seen how your need for control often masked deeper fears. Now you're left with the uncomfortable truth. You don't really know who you are, not fully. And that's not a failure. It's an invitation, because underneath everything you thought you had to be lies something deeper, quieter, more real. Not a final version of yourself, but a constantly unfolding one. The idea that there's one true self hidden beneath the noise is comforting, but it's also misleading. You're not static. You're not a fixed story. You are a process, a contradiction, a series of choices, many of which you haven't made yet. When you begin to peel away the layers of conditioning, expectation, and fear, you find space. That space can feel like freedom, but at first it feels like emptiness. You might panic, wondering if anything real exists beneath the roles you've played. You might try to cling to an old version of yourself, or rush to define a new one. But the truth is, this space is not meant to be filled immediately. It's meant to be lived in. The absence of a clear identity doesn't mean you are lost. It means you are open. And in that openness, something begins to happen. An honest curiosity about what truly matters to you, what brings you alive when no one is watching, what kind of life actually feels like yours. But discovering your authentic self is not about choosing the most admirable traits and building a perfect version of you. It's about noticing what feels aligned, even when it doesn't impress anyone. It's about owning the full range of your humanity, the joy and the jealousy, the tenderness and the rage, the ambition and the doubt. It's not about being good all the time. It's about being real, because only through honesty, even the uncomfortable kind, can you build a self that isn't constantly breaking under pressure. The process is never finished. You will always have blind spots. You will always have more to uncover. But that's what makes it real. You're not chasing an ideal anymore. You're learning to sit with the truth as it is. Some days, that truth will feel grounding. Other days, it will shake everything. But either way, it will be yours. No longer borrowed from your upbringing, shaped by fear, or dictated by performance. To know yourself in a world that constantly tells you who to be is a radical act. It requires silence, honesty, patience, and the courage to look where others avoid. But once you begin to see yourself clearly, you no longer need the world to tell you your worth. You carry it with you, not as a mask, not as a performance, but as something quiet and unshakable, something that finally feels like home.